At the end of the last video, we ended up with this code. Now we've written quite a lot here to handle certain use cases and do certain things. And we've written something like 114 lines of code. We do things like we export to CSV, we clean some data, we loop through different pages, we pull product information out. But what if we could do most of this with a framework? Because you think this is a lot of code that we're going to be rewriting next time we want to actually scrape a different site. And that's where frameworks are really good. Now, obviously, the main Python framework is Scrapy. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to take this code and we're going to make it a Scrapy project instead. So I have a new folder set up here and I've created a new virtual environment. You will definitely want to do that for Scrapy because it brings in quite a lot of dependencies. So we're going to do pip3 install Scrapy like this. It may just be pip for you, that's fine. And once this is done, we're going to create a new project. Okay, so I'll just clear this screen up. So we'll do Scrapy start project and we'll just call this one Rye like this. Okay, so we can cd into our project and then we can do the Scrapy gen spider just like it suggests here, and we'll call this one products, and it's just going to be this website here. So now what we've got here, if I go to tree, is you'll see that I have my main folder, and Scrapy has created all of these Python files for us, including the products.py under the spiders. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this folder in NeoVim. Of course, you can use any code editor that you like. VS Code is just fine. NeoVim is just my preference. So I'm going to start with the settings.py file. Now this is important because there's one key thing that we want to change in here, and we want to get a fresh real user agent here. So we're going to want to choose our own user agent. Now to do this, I'm going to open up a browser. I think we've got Chrome on here, Chromium browser, that will do. And I'm just going to go quickly grab what is my user agent. And I'm going to copy this string here, and I'm going to paste this into my code like so. This means now Scrapy is going to use this user agent every time it makes requests. There's just one here as well. We might as well change this to false, just in case, make our lives a little bit easier in case we get blocked that way. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. The next thing I'm going to do is we're going to come to our products.py spider, and we're going to have a look at what we've got here. So we have our product spider, and we have a name, allowed domains, which means we can only go to those links that are in that domain, our start URLs, and then this empty pass here. So with Scrapy, your start URLs will be obviously the place where you start scraping. From here, the automatic callback is to pass. So what we could do is we can say, here's the product page, and pass the information that comes back to it, and that will work fine. But what we want to do is we want to actually crawl through all of the pages. So if I go back to, let's find our actual URL that we started with here. I scroll down here. Let's grab this and go back to our code here, and I just need to change this so we're on the right page. Page 1. Okay, perfect. So we want to do exactly the same thing that we did before. We want to go to this page and then follow through. However, if we were to use the straight up Scrapy spider for this, what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to go through all of these pages because we want to go through each individual product as well as each individual page. Now the way to do that in Scrapy is to actually use the crawl spider. So what we're going to do is we're going to do from Scrapy.spiders, we're going to import in the crawl spider here. There's a couple of other things that we'll need to import as well. We'll just change this here to start with. So we're going to change this from Scrapy.spider to our crawl spider here. So what this means is now we're going to be using the crawl spider is that we can actually, if I come to the documentation, is that we can see that this is better for crawling, and it gives us access to these rules here. Now the crawling rules are basically, hey, follow these links and only these links based on our criteria. So what we can say is, hey, if you find a link that looks like this, that has this product maybe here, let's follow that one. And then we can do a callback on that to actually get the information so we can easily go through all of the products, etc., etc. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at this example real quick, and we're going to turn this into our own, to fit our own code. So if we look here, we have the crawl spider, and this is what we just put in. Now we need to get the link extractors. We'll do that in just a second in our code. Start URLs is the same, and here's the crucial part. We can create rules that we're going to actually allow the link extractor to follow, and then we have a link extractor here to pass item. So what we want to do is we want to say, allow it to follow all of the products, and then when we get to a link that has this product in it, I'll show you that in just a second, we'll then do the callback to the pass item function, but also to allow it to go to anything that has page is equal to, but we don't need to call back on that because we just want to make a request and then go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this so we can easily import this, paste this in here. So now we have the link extractors. So I'm going to set my start URL to start with. So we'll put it on the deals page. There we go. So we can put this straight in here. Put you in there. Perfect. Now, when you use the crawl spider, the default pass function is reserved. So you cannot use, if you were to try and write all of your passing code in here, you'd have issues. So we're going to call this function pass item. Now we're going to leave this as pass. What we're going to do is we're going to set up our rules first so we can follow all the links. And then I'll show you how to figure out all the selectors and everything when you're using Scrapy like this. Again, we're basically trying to do exactly what we wrote with all of this code here in Scrapy, so you can see, once you understand all of this, how you can transfer it into Scrapy and make your life easier and make use of everything that Scrapy does for you, which is fantastic. So what we're going to do is we need to look at rules and the rule and the link extractor now. So let's start this up here. So we'll just call this one rules like this. And I believe this needs to be a tuple. Yep, equal to this. And let's start our first rule, which is going to be part of a link extractor. Why is it not filling this in? Doesn't matter. Like this. And then we can do our allow and our deny. Okay, so we'll say allow, like we're doing here, is equal to. Now this needs to be a tuple for some reason. I've never bothered to look into why it has to be a tuple, but it does have to. So what do we want to allow? Well, if we look at the example here, it's basically just giving us some kind of a regex, basically, category. So we can basically do the same thing. So we want to allow, and we want to do R, and we're going to put in here, this is going to be to follow the pages. So we'll do page is equal to. And that's because every page link that we go to down here has this in the URL. So anything that matches this starting from our start page is going to be allowed us to go. Now, depending on what website you're doing and how it works, you will need to figure out your own rules as you go. I've just gone to the wrong page, so we'll just go back. Hopefully that'll take me to where I want to be. Yes. Okay, so the next thing is the product, and you'll see that this has product in it. Now, we want the product information, so we want our spider to go to that page. So I don't know if we need to have a deny. I don't think we need to have a deny. Let's see, I don't remember. So let's create a new rule. Again, our link extractor. And we want to allow is equal to, and our new tuple, don't forget. And we want to say product because we want it to follow any link that has product in it. Now from here, if we go back to the documentation, you'll see that we have this callback is pass item. Now this is basically saying every time we find this link, we want to go and call this pass item function. So then we can pull the data out of it. Okay, so that's important. So I'm going to put the callback in. And our callback is going to be equal to pass item like so. I think this is how it should be fine. Pass item. Yep, let's put the comma in there. Okay, so this should work fine. So this is basically going to go to these links. Now, we're not doing anything in this pass function here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close this. We'll clear this up. And we'll try Scrapy run. Scrapy crawl, pardon. Scrapy crawl products. Okay, so we should get a load of links coming by. And if I just stop this for now, you'll see that we are going to anything that says page and also anything that says product. Okay, so that's going to work for us. We're going to visit all of these pages now. So what we want to do is we want to actually figure out how we're going to pull the information off of a product page. So let's go and pick the first one. So when we actually get there, it matches. Are we on page 1? No, we're on page 2. Let's just double check. Okay, let's just take this for example. So let's have a look. So what information did we get the first time round? Well, I can tell this from my data class name, item number, price, and rating. Again, you can get any information that's on this page that's available. So we have the name, item, price, and rating, all good. Now, if you're wondering how you can actually figure out what you need for your Scrapy to actually pull the information, the best thing you can do is copy the URL of the page that you want to actually scrape with Scrapy and run Scrapy shell and then paste the URL in. What this is going to do is it's going to make a GET request to that page that you just gave it with the URL, and it's going to then store that HTML in the shell interactively so you can figure out where your selectors are, what they are, and what you need to do. So I'm going to just come back over here and refresh my memory with the selectors. Okay, so that's fine. We can figure that out. So we have a lot of information here. So what can we do? Well, let's have a look at response.css A tags like this. Okay, there's loads. Fine. So we know that there's loads of A tags on here, which is obviously linked. So that's basically going to be making sense. So let's come to inspect. And let's go on the title. And we have this H1. I've moved down, product page title, like this, and that has the product page title. Cool. So let's do response.css. Let me clear this so you can see. Now it was a H1 with an ID. So we do H1 hash because we're using CSS selectors. Let's put that in like this, and let's hit enter. So we see we have now found this selector here. So with Scrapy, we want to do .text like this with the double colons inside. Now this is just the way that Scrapy handles selectors. It's using parcel, I think, to scrape, which you can actually use outside of Scrapy too if you like. And then we'll do .get, so we actually get the text from this. I'm not a massive fan of selectors like this, but they do make sense and they are CSS selectors. They're fine. Just the little double colon things I'm not so great about. But we know now that this is the selector that we want for our code to get the title of the item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, actually we can just leave that because I can find that in my history. Actually, let's open up another terminal. And if you were using VS Code, if you had it split up or whatever, you can just do this. But what I want to do is I'm going to go back to my projects, and I'm going to do my Scrapy project, and then CD into it again. And then let's open up our spider in products like this. Okay, cool. So let's make this bigger. This is going to be slightly behind my head, but we should be all good. What I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to create a doc string, because all I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy my selectors in and put them in here like this. So I know that these are the selectors that I want to get out of here. Okay, the next one is going to be the price. This should be nice and straightforward. Span, ID, and this. So again, let's go back here. Response.css. And it was a span. ID. Text. .get. Perfect. Let's copy that. This is going to be a bit messy for the moment whilst I mess around with this. So that's the price. And let's get the item number. Same deal. Well, it was a span tag, span, ID, paste that in. We want the text from this, and .get, and I typed response wrong, of course. Okay, so that worked there. So this is our other next selector. So let's copy you out, please, and paste it in there. Cool, so now we have 3. What was the final piece that we wanted? The rating. Again, same deal. This was a class, I think. Yep, so that's a dot like this. Same deal, text, dot get. Okay, so that's done. So let's copy you, come back over here and paste it in. So why have I spent all the time doing this up here? What this allows you to do is to actually really work out what you're trying to find, the data that you're trying to get out, and you can really hone down and see the information. It also provides you a really good opportunity to see that this is there, this data is available, and you're not going to run into any issues with it being loaded dynamically from JavaScript or anything like that. So we know that this data is here and it's available to us as I've got it over here in this code. So I'm just going to close this and we're going to exit out of our shell and we're going to start up our NeoVim again in here, and let's come back to our products. Okay, so now we can start to put together our parse item function. So if we come and quickly check this out again, we'll see that when we come to a page like this, we have these selectors. So let's create an item like it shows us in here to do this. Now it's creating a Scrapy item in this. I'm going to do this as in it's just yielding and returning a dictionary. And we'll talk a little bit about Scrapy items afterwards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say yield, because we want to yield out, which means every time we go through this, we can return, and we'll yield, not return. And we're going to get a dictionary. So we'll say that the title is going to be equal to, and it's this code here. Let's paste you in like this, and so forth. You get the idea, price. Okay, so we don't need any of this. So that was just for safekeeping. We'll remove you, and let's save this, and I'm going to format this up with black. So now we have essentially the start or a working, or hopefully a working spider. Now you can't see these behind my head, but all we're doing, as I said, visiting all these pages that match this, going to these pages that match this, and calling back parse item. So I'm going to try running the spider now. So let's go back up and of course push up arrow more times than it would take to actually just type it again, and let's hit crawl products and see where we end up. Okay, so you can see that we are getting some items coming back, we are getting some data. I'm going to stop this now and we'll have a quick look. Okay, so here we are, and it seems to be working just fine. Now, in the first instance that we wrote from scratch, we used a data class to handle holding our data and moving in and out. Now you can use data classes in Scrapy, or you can use Scrapy's items. So this is what we're going to do now. So if I come over to the documentation and we go to items, you'll see that we can create an item class that's going to hold information in it. And it does say you can also use data classes. I'm sure that's great. I've never done it that way. I've always just used Scrapy items. So let's go ahead and create a Scrapy item that we can put data into to actually work with. Now, you don't need to do this. This code will work as is. It will scrape all the data in the dictionary that we've put, and we could output this to CSV or JSON as it is. But we do want to change and manipulate and clean some of this data like we did in the first version. So to do that, the easiest way is to create a Scrapy item. So I'm going to come to items, which has obviously already been created for us in our code. And we're going to get rid of this text here, and we're going to create our item in here. So we'll do title is equal to Scrapy dot field. Okay, like this. Now we're just going to create 4 of these. And this one's going to be title, price, rating, and what was the last one? This was item number. Okay, it doesn't matter what way round they are. Item number, like so. So we have our item created now. So let's go ahead back to our spider, which is in products. Our spider products, product spider. There we go. And let's import in our item. So from .items, just to go up. And then we'll import in our item like so. And then in our parse item field, we can say that our item is equal to an instance of this item class. This is very similar and should be fairly familiar to everybody. I'm going to leave these in here for the moment, but we are going to change this in a second. So if we come back to the example, you'll see that we can just create these like this and carry on happily and merrily. But what we want to use is we want to actually use the item loader to populate those fields. Now, I don't think this is totally necessary, but it does really make a difference because we can actually handle how we move our data, and it just works neatly with all of Scrapy going forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change our item now, and I'm going to put in the item loader. So let's come back to our code. So let's import the item loader in here. I think we can do this. Yep. And we'll come back down here, and we're going to now do our L is equal to our item loader instance. Item loader like so. Now we want to say that the item we want to have in here is now equal to the right item, like so. If we come back to the documentation, you can see this is here. And the response is equal to the response. That needs to be an instance of the class. Response is equal to the response that we get back here, like this. Cool. Not delete that. Delete this one. So what we're saying is that our item loader L is now responsible for this item class, which we just created, and we're using it, populating it with the response that's come back through this pass item. So this response here is being passed in here. What we can now do is we can load into this our different item. We'll do this first, and then I'll show you how you handle cleaning up the data with this. So we want to do L dot add CSS because we're using CSS selectors like it shows you here, and we want to give it the item that we're going to be loading, the item field we're going to be loading it into, and then the selector. This is an XPath one, but you'll see the CSS one here, down here. And you can actually do add value as well, which means you can add in some arbitrary information every time you scrape an item if that's important to you. So let's do add CSS title. Now we don't want to give it the whole with the whole thing here. We just want to give it the actual selector like this. So let's just copy this, and we have 4, so we'll put 4 in, and this is going to be price item number and the rating. Cool. So we just need to grab these. So you can see immediately, we're not saying, give me the text for this element. We're not saying, give me the text for this element here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this, and we're going to yield out our l.load item like so. Let's just double check I got that right. And you'll see return l.load item. Okay, so we don't need, you don't yield on this one, we return on this here. Return. Okay. So yeah, as I said, we're not actually doing anything, we're just giving it a selector. So that's interesting. Okay, oh, I need to save my items too. Let's do that. Okay, let's run Scrapy crawl products again. Let's see what we get. Okay, so if I can't stop this here, what we're getting is we're getting the information, but we're passing in the whole of the element that we actually selected. But we only want the text information from this. But we got rid of our .get on the text. So how do we handle that? What we need to do is, if we open up our items again, is that we want to change this to actually handle that within our item class. This gives us a little bit extra flexibility, so we can say, do this with this field when it comes into the item class instead. So what we want to do is, if I come over to the documentation and I say, I think it's an item pipeline, we want to come down to input and output processors, and we want to use these. So I'm going to copy these, and I'll just explain to you what they are when I put them in here. Okay, so item loaders and the processors. So within the item loader, we're going to use one of these input and output processors to do something with the data that we're sending it to. So as I showed you when I just ran the code, we see a raw element come back. Now we don't want that, we want to do, so what we want to do something. So we're going to use these functions here, these methods to actually change that data. So remove tags is going to remove all of the HTML tags for us, which we can then use with map composed. And take first is essentially what it says. We always return a list when we do this, so we're going to take the first instance from it. We're also going to create our own one, which I will show you in just a second. But the way that these work is you do input processor like this and an output processor. So let's copy this and put it in here and just tidy this up a little bit. Like so. Now we don't want the output processor to be join. We want the output processor to be take first. You'll take first, because we want essentially the first item that comes back like so. So we're going to want to put these on all of the fields. But before we do that, I'm going to show you how to create your own function that will handle some of the information for you. So let's create something new, and we'll call this one, where we had it in here, we had it as clean data, which I can't see at the moment. Here we go. So we're removing these characters. So essentially, because we're creating our own function, we can put this in here. And this is going to do exactly what this did for us in the other code. So you can put your own cleaning function in here to do anything with that data that you want to do. So now what I can say is our input processor is remove tags, but it's also clean data, not clear overlords. I don't know what that is. We want clean data. So this is basically going to run these functions on the input when the data comes in. So let's copy all of this out, and we want to put this on each of these fields. So now we fleshed this out a little bit with our own data. We don't need join. We weren't ever going to use that. We do need that to look proper. So I'm just going to format this with black. Did it pretty neatly in the first place. We can remove this at the top. So we have this all fitting on one screen nice and neatly. So again, our item, we're going to pass in the information, that raw element, and it's going to do, with map compose, it's going to remove all the tags and run our clean data function, and then it's going to take first. So let's save now, and let's run it again. Now we should start to see proper data coming through. I'm just going to stop this here, and we'll see now that we have our item number, price, rating, and the title all formatted in exactly the same way that we wanted it to. I know these are in a different order, it just does that. But we have the item number like this, and everything's had been trimmed and done all that cleaning data on it that we wanted to do. So we're just about finished with this. The only other thing that we did that we didn't have in our original one is that we had the option to export to JSON and to CSV. Of course, Scrapy has that built in. You just do -o, and then you give it your products.json like this. I'm going to run this the whole way through now, and we'll have a look at what comes out the other end. And I'll also show you the output from Scrapy and what it gives you. Okay, that's finished, and we have all of the output here. We can see how many requests we made, how many different items we got out, 1,094. I don't expect this will be exactly the same as last time, because I suspect the products have probably changed a bit. And it also tells you how long it took to run, somewhere along here as well, all etc. Loads of cool information. But we also now have our products.json file here, which if I format with black, which might take a little second, here we go. So you can see that we have all of the information here, and we could do exactly the same with CSV. If you wanted to, just do products.csv. Now there's one thing that I think if you've been following this series along that you might notice that we didn't have to deal with doing it this way. And that is the fact that Scrapy will handle anything that doesn't have information in these selectors. It will automatically handle it for us. We don't have to code it in. So it's all little things like that that make your life easier when you're using a framework like this. However, I still think it's important that you understand how all of this works and what it does before you start really diving into Scrapy. So I really would encourage you to write this all out manually yourself, because you'll learn so much more. And then when you're comfortable with that, moving on to Scrapy if you need to, or if you so desire, to make your life easier and quicker by utilizing the code that's already written in there to do those things. Obviously, there's a lot more to Scrapy than this, but this is like the basic stuff that I think you'll need to know how to do. I generally then tend to use the crawl spider more than the normal spider. Just depends on what you're scraping and how it's working. The only difference is that the normal spider doesn't have rules, but you can give it different start URLs. The items and the item loader are all the same. So hopefully you have enjoyed this and learned something from it. If you're still watching, I applaud you. This has been quite a long video. Jump in the Discord. There's a link below. Come and tell me about everything that I've done wrong in this video and how you would improve it. I always like to hear that. And also go ahead and check out the rest of the playlist if you haven't done so already. If you want to know more scraping stuff, I think you're going to enjoy this video here where I talk more about how to scrape dynamic content using a browser.